Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another episode of League Unlock. Mark here with you fine folks for a little bit of weekend recap action. We had at least one. I'm gonna hover over the stamp for certified banger. At least we had a marquee matchup, and more importantly, it was an LEC roadshow weekend, which means the home crowd blue wall had more than their fair share to cheer about. 2 series for KC, and of course the marquee one against G2, where Caliste steps up under the brightest lights.
Baby, straight up, the LEC roadshows are one of, if not the best thing going on in League of Legends right now. Again, getting to the crowds, getting to these live environments, getting all that juices flowing. That's what it's about, baby. That's competition. That's what you love to see in the LEC, and especially shout out to the Blue Wall Carmine Corp. They blew it out of the water this time. We already had high expectations for these live events and everything that'd be going with it. Blue Wall brought it, and yes, their star player, the phenom Caliste, delivers big time under the brightest lights for his boys.
We had, the first series, we had the 2v4 out of him and Vladdy against SK, and then, of course, the marquee matchup against G2. We had some of the most confident, aggressive, flexing Ezreal plays in that game 2 that ends up kind of being a stomp over to KC. And then in game 3, it was, you can talk about the Warwick Mundo draft maybe missing the mark a little bit for G2, but this is more KC. We've kind of been critical of them despite having a good record, being a little bit messy, but now the last couple of series you can talk about Kana, Vladdy, and Caliste. I'm going to put all of them at basically the top of the table in their respective roles.
There's obviously the 2 stories from this series. One is about Carmine Corp, Caliste, everything that went right. You talk about that Ezreal. I'm thinking of, probably listing off maybe Viper, Uzi, I'm thinking probably one other, Ruler, throw Ruler and Pays, whatever you want, either of those 2 guys in there. That's the quality that we're talking about, seeing these type of plays, seeing that type of lethality out of this champion. That was fantastic from him again, of really a home run, grand slam, everything for Carmine Corp. When you're looking at that G2 composition, we've known about Warwick being one of these token picks that they want to find a way to work into these drafts, use it as a counter to the Cassante and Bisa style of champions and everything else, pairing it with that Mundo. But there was never anything without the TP. There's no, real connection for the CC for these champions on the side of G2. Just didn't see it working out at all, and obviously punished on the side by Carmine Corp.
It does feel like Broken Blade and G2 to a lesser extent has kind of been able to get away and look good on some picks that maybe aren't actually that good or that viable, but the current form that Kana is in, you're not getting away with anything, because this guy, this is the level we were hoping he would be when he came over from T1. It took over a year for things to really align for this KC lineup, but yeah, they are absolutely firing on all cylinders, and obviously because of that, the crowd a little bit fired up, just a little bit fired up for this, but this is better than playoffs have been over the last couple of years in the LEC.
This is what I'm talking about. You get that live environment. You have your other fans side by side. You have fans competing with each other to motivate, to cheer on their players, all sorts of things. These are the environments that you need. This is the passion that comes through when you can have things like this. And I think it's been far too slow of a road to get back to some normalcy, get back to taking advantage of this type of aspect of the sport.
This is us feeling good about KC, obviously because of the first stand showing that they've already given, and this is, we weren't even talking about Fnatic at all this weekend, and you're still feeling pretty good against EU, or about EU, because G2 is slowly finding their form again. But yeah, primarily, obviously, what Carmine Corp is putting forth at the moment, you're starting to feel better, or at least relaxing a little bit for Mark's got the jersey. T1. I'm not fully saying they're back, baby. Partially because we have a spiraling 6-game losing streak D plus Kia that was Barrel borderline running it down on the Leona, and apparently the recipe for Faker returning to form is a matchup against Showmaker, because all of a sudden he's excelling in the laning phase, which is something we haven't seen in like a month.
And that is the important thing to take away from this game, because yes, there's lots of other things you can talk about with this one. And again, one of the big ones, as you mentioned, is this is not two ships in the night sailing by each other. This is one on a rocket ship going all the way to the moon, and the other one trying to get down to the deepest core of the planet with the slide that they are on right now as D plus Kia keeps going in the opposite direction. There's things you can talk about with D plus Kia as far as it, and individually, I think Showmaker had some messy moments in this series. Beryl, who is that general commanding guy who has to be on, had his own individual mistakes and bad calls, is something to look at as well in this. But yes, on the side of T1, individually, the important one and the biggest one for me moving forward in this series was Faker in lane, and how he was able to generate his advantages, the solidity, how solid he was in there, and how much you can rely upon him to be this engine moving forward for T1.
And the other avenue that, again, was opened up here was Doran, back-to-back solid performances on carries. We're talking Gwen and Camille, him getting attention early, having impact in team fights. I know we're always saying, well, he looks great. The team looks better on Sion and Ornn. But you're not winning Worlds. You're not winning the LCK unless you have all three lanes that you can play through and take over. And so seeing these signs from Doran, absolutely a positive.
And I think it's important that you're doing it right now, especially with the meta options, like as you laid out, Gwen, Camille being up in there in the top side, showing that that is still a possibility, that this isn't something that you can write off. Oh, it's only going to be weak side Doran type of situation. You have to be able to keep your opponent on your toes, and showcasing this and having results like this is one of the ways you do it as T1.
Rest of the LCK, Hanwha Life and Gen G continue to bulldoze their way through the competition. Feels like Diablo and Lazyfield may be stuck on ELO hell a little bit and probably won't be on their respective squads next year. But the real story is history will not be made this split, because the DN Freaks are not losing 12 series in a row. Surprisingly, getting their first series win against Nongshim, who have looked, I mean, they're in a slide of their own right now, but at times have looked like the third best team in the league. And apparently the secret, Berserker and multiple guys on the squad saying, we just started communicating less, started doing scrims where nobody was talking because the comms just weren't working.
Now, I'm not sure that's going to be the solution moving forward, but at the very least, sometimes there are situations where it is too much talking, over communicating, over sharing, where it does need to be lessened down, prioritize what you are communicating in these moments, and keeping focus there for the players. And I think that is mostly what they're getting at, and with what the changes were for these DN Freaks and how you see it through. But pretty remarkable to go 3-0 in that matchup, the game, it's a series that you are breaking the 0-11 slump here for the DN Freaks. Yes, Jin Air fans, you can break out the champagne. Your record is still safe, hanging on to the bottom of the LCK.
The bad news for the Freaks, obviously, is this new LCK format. You're carrying over this ugly record into the next round post MSI.
So it is the steepest of steep mountains to climb in the LCK remaining for the DN Freaks. But you know what? Credit is due. They have made that first step, first reach up the ladder to go up the mountain.
Let's see if there's any sort of momentum that comes from them picking up a single series win. We had the comeback kids in back-to-back weeks over in the LTA, and this was a doozy for Cloud9 in Game 2. Marquee matchup, the top dogs in their respective groups against Team Liquid. They were down 8K in Game 2 with Team Liquid pushing on to Nexus turrets to close out the game. We get a solid Gnar engage out of Thanatos, but really, APA is whiffing on the Ziggs. I've never seen more zero-man Skarner ultis in a game than this one against Cloud9.
It's the worst thing ever, because that was the happiest I have felt watching Skarner in professional play, and it's because he's missing all these things and he's not getting all these frustrating things where you're going, oh my god, the stupid hail coming on through and it just changes this fight, whatever. No, it was none of those, because Umpty wasn't getting any of them, and that is a serious problem for me. I think I'm gonna have a very big look at Yuji stepping on in whenever he is available for Team Liquid. I think that would be something, again, from the outside looking in, I would want to make that type of change. But props for Cloud9, hanging in there, staying with it, and knowing the opportunity and taking that moment that they had to make this turnaround happen in the game.
And obviously, there were still multiple plays after that base defense that got Cloud9 back into this game, but the team fighting was absolutely at a different level, and still feels like there is a massive gap in solo lanes in this matchup with the level that Thanatos and Loki are at. And I'm still just so impressed at the communication level that Cloud9 is at, with obviously 2 Korean players coming over, and Blabber historically, I don't think we've talked about shot calling as being this guy's strength. It felt extra painful for Umpty that Blabber had a pop-off performance individually in this series, but Cloud9 all being on the same wavelength in all of these team fights has maybe been the most impressive part of the split for them.
And when you're looking for a difference maker, having a jungler at that level, at that quality, like Blabber, like FlyQuest with Inspired, seems to be the ticket to be one of these elite teams, one of these teams that you truly can have that belief in stepping into these matches, because of how it allows you to accelerate, to prop up other avenues for your team, to put behind the other avenue for the other team, and set things up in that type of way to get snowballs rolling. It works out. And even with this one for Cloud9, where it is the advantage is gained by Team Liquid, which we do got to give credit over to Team Liquid in this one for being able to get those early advantages and winning out on some of these things early, even if there is a penalty cost on the execution and unable to close the game for Team Liquid. I'm looking at this one for Cloud9, hanging on in there and making the smart choices and having that type of veteran presence to know that this game isn't out of reach, it's not over, and to stay with it and to pull through it. That is a quality that I wanted to see from a Cloud9 team that does have such young pillar members in those solo lanes.
C9 were the expected winners in this one, even though it's a marquee head-to-head matchup. The biggest surprise or upset on the weekend, 100%, is the Rebellion taking down 100 Thieves, and the fashion that they did it. Number one, you had the fudge factor on full display, especially against this Irelia pick out a sniper, maybe the biggest team fight of the series. Fudge is just sitting there playing gatekeeper, not letting Sniper get into the team fight, tracking where he is. Fudge finally goes in, gets a big 3-man Gnar ulti, and Sniper, by the time he gets to the fight, it's over, and he's trying to pull off a 1v4.
Now that has to be a learning moment for Sniper in this situation, whether it is about how you're actually executing in the game or understanding this is a possibility when my team's composition is going to be this, and I'm playing Aurelia type of situation, and how and what is on the other side type of things. Because again, yeah, Fudge plays the bodyguard. He plays the protector perfectly for the team, keeping him at bay, keeping him out of anything important until when he can finally get in there. Well, you're the only one getting in there, buddy, and there's not really anything that's going to happen situation. This was wonderful from Shopify Rebellion. I think this provides a nice avenue to dream of having them maybe challenge, maybe be someone that can throw down into that playoff type of category in the LTA. Hey, Ludwig had the show match coming on out, and ever since then, we have seen this little bit of a turnaround, a little bit of an increase in performance for the Shopify boys, maybe getting inspired by their new owner.
Yeah, maybe he was saying, I'm giving you guys $25K in your pockets every series win that you guys pick up, because they do seem motivated. You know, Palafox pulling out the Xerath, Contracts continues to be at a high level, and obviously in this short group stage, every series has huge implications. Now you're talking about 100 Thieves being in an elimination match. It's against Disguised, and they'll be huge favorites. I'd be very surprised if they lose that. But now on the other side, Shopify gets a third place seeding match against Team Liquid, and current form, you're telling me you can't see Shopify beating TL?
And this is a Shopify where, again, a lot of these individual improvements are happening all across the board for guys that you do know have the potential to contribute more, to be better players, bigger players for this team. That is the scary thing you'd be looking at if you are a Team Liquid, especially coming through, you know, what is your bounce back? What is your rebound going to look like coming out of the Cloud9 series? So, yeah, I think that is a reasonable amount of speculation looking at the standings in the LTA.
And of course, the other one heading into next weekend is that first place seeding match. The 2 3-0 squads, Cloud9 and FlyQuest. Seeing these potential matchups, I'm kind of liking this pivot from best of ones that we were having. I'm kind of liking this format so far.
I'm enjoying it. I still am not a fan of best of ones, but I think kind of there is somewhat of an argument to be made for the mixture of the two within the split and where it allows you to grow and pivot from type of thing. I'm on board with that one right now with the way that these best of threes are lining up and shaping up towards sending us towards playoffs.
Improvement on it could even be next year. You could have just a mega super week where teams are playing multiple best of ones in a day, akin to the World Championship, which you've heard the old World Championship format, which I've heard players talk about. They used to like having a game and then waiting 3 hours before they played their next game. But if you just got all the best of ones over within a week, and then you kind of had this group stage standings that they did here, sounds like an improvement to me.
I think that'd be a pretty cool type of format strategy to put in, something like that early Worlds format stage, Swiss stage play-in type of environment where it is playing multiple games a day. You're playing the next day, but you know what? It is rapid fire. That's the pace for everybody. We're getting these best of ones out of the way, and we're moving right on to best of threes throughout these remaining weeks. I think that could be an exciting launch point for a strategy of a split.
Lately, early in the split, we were saying BLG looking a bit like some frauds, but we forgot that they have a symbiotic relationship with T1. Because since T1 has been on this 4-game win streak, BLG has been on a 5-game series win streak in their own right, 3 straight 2-0s. And how about the last 7 games for your boy, the golden left hand, Knight? 50, 10, and 48. He has been dominating, and BLG with Beishuan looks like a different squad. They are fully off of fraud watch right now.
It's almost impossible to believe that it is simply that type of change can spark so much for this team to go right back into order, into that elite category of the LPL. But that's what you've seen. That's what the games say, and they don't lie. And so that's what it is for BLG. Yes, maybe shaking hands with Faker and T1, a little bit of the T1 Venom symbiote managed to transfer over between the hands over to BLG. And that's what's linking them together with their performances, because you're right, T1 surging up the LCK, and here comes BLG up the LPL charts with these performances. And as you laid out those stats for Knight, that is a big reason why. And one of the big things we talked about when BLG is struggling, that it was unacceptable because of having players like this quality on your team. And now you're seeing that performance, those results come through, and you're seeing exactly how much of a mover and shaker it is within the LPL.
And I know they've had a relatively easy schedule over the last 3 or 4 series, but they have been dominating. These aren't close. These are over by 10 minutes, just purely out of laning and out team fighting, hands diffs across the board for BLG. Even if they slip up the odd time, probably because they're bored. We know how the mental of BLG can be when they're not actually tested. They maybe take the foot off the gas, but they fully look like they're back to that contender status. So then we're left with maybe one of the other 2 top teams being potential frauds. And we're talking JDG, I think, is the forefront there, but it's amazing. Top eSports are sitting at 12-2. They just get a pretty convincing 2-0 against JDG. And people are still rooting for this team to lose. They're expecting them to crumble. I know they've had some bad international performances, but the hate watching that goes on for this team, I truly don't understand.
Somebody must have bet their parents' house on their first stand pick'ems or something like that to have these type of, vendettas against top esports that we have seen out there. Because yes, 12-2. The results of these games, the highlights, all these sorts of things, there is no way you couldn't be on board and want to put the fraud label onto this top esports team. Now, I will say that, understanding that I'll allow an exception, a loophole in this one, where you can get your hand ready for the fraud stamp to put on to top esports here, is again, looking back at those tapes from first stand, looking back at previous international failures. I can understand being hesitant to trust it, but what you have only seen so far from them since that first stand and being back in the LPL, top tier competition, middle of the pack, upper elite level competition, top esports has been able to be this top esports against them. That's why I've got faith in them at that point.
They need 2 separate stacks of papers when you're certifying the fraud stamp. The LPL TES, oh no, we're putting that back. And then the international one, they have to earn getting that stamp removed. It's already there. Like it's never been gone since that first stand. But even anyone's legend coming in now. I know they've now got a two series win streak, but we've seen them throw a couple of duds recently. Obviously, they got kind of slammed by BLG, but they've also 2-0 top eSports recently, and this really feels like the losses for anyone's legend, and this is synonymous with Tarzan throughout his career. Tarzan has a bad series, you get 0-2.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it really seems to be that is the only path for anyone's legend, and when it's going that way, you wish someone else is able to step up, right the ship, change course of direction, and get things back to an even playing field within that game, that type of thing. It doesn't exist for this anyone's legend team right now without Tarzan being involved, being one of the key figures and getting things going. That can be a pain point. That certainly can be a point that is addressed and prioritized to attack within a pick and ban type of situation. But for at least for anyone's legend right now, more times than not, Tarzan is coming through as that king of the jungle for them and making a difference.
And the truth is, any of these top three now, we're throwing BLG in the top three, shouldn't actually be on the LPL fraud watch. I think the main obvious one is now JDG, because Missing continues to have a kind of abysmal season. It feels like they're relying too heavily on Pays, and that's with Missing having such a bad season. You're still relying on this ADC.
They're very much relying on Pays. I think it's no question about it when you watch these games and you see what Pays is capable of. You can understand putting all your eggs into that type of basket and faith in it, but you understand as well, in order for those eggs to come through, you got to get a little bit of help sometimes. It can't always just be the heavy lifting for Pays. It doesn't always work. And you've seen that in the results for JDG.
And of course, IG and Weibo are they're not on fraud watch. They are on the council of frauds. They are the ones deciding who else can fall into that category.
They're swirling around a Shirley Temple, sitting by the pool at the fraud villa. Man, they're keeping track of it.
Yeah, they got a timeshare where they'll be there multiple times a week hanging out. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute beautiful people. Thanks for hanging out. You know we will catch you on that flippity flip.